Standard and factored form. In this video, you'll learn how to rewrite quadratic expressions given in factored form into standard form using either the distributive property or a diagram. You'll also learn how to tell the difference between factored form and standard form. The standard form of a quadratic expression is written as a sum, as ax squared plus bx plus c. The factored form of a quadratic expression is written as a product of two linear factors, such as x plus m times x plus n. Here's a list of different quadratic expressions. The ones that are in blue are in standard form because we can see that they are a sum of numbers and different terms being added. The ones in green are in factored form because they're a product of two different expressions. If we have an expression in factored form such as x plus m times x plus n, then we can turn it into standard form by starting with x squared, and then we'll add our middle term of m plus nx, and then we'll add our third term of the product of m and n. So if we have an example like x plus 1 times x minus 1, then m will be 1 and n will be negative 1. So we'll start with the x squared term, and then we'll add our x term whose coefficient we get by adding m and n. So in our case, we'll add 1 and negative 1. And then lastly, we'll add the product of m and n. So now let's simplify what we have. If we add 1 and negative 1, we'll get 0 for our coefficient of x. And if we multiply 1 times negative 1, we'll simplify that to negative 1 at the end. So our expression will be x squared plus 0x minus 1. Let's look at a few more examples. We're going to use the distributive property to simplify each expression. We'll put our property on the bottom so we know how to convert from factored form into standard form. So we'll start by looking at our first example. We could see that m is negative 2 and n is positive 3. So we'll start by writing x squared, and then we'll add our x term whose coefficient is negative 2 plus 3. This simplifies to just positive 1x. And now we'll multiply our products of m and n. So we'll multiply negative 2 times positive 3, which gives us negative 6. Now let's look at x minus 2 squared. This is the same as x minus 2 times x minus 2, since a number squared just means that we're multiplying it by itself. So we have m and n both as negative 2 in this example. So we'll always start with our first term of x squared, and then we'll add our x term where our coefficient is negative 2 plus negative 2, which gives us negative 4x. Now we'll add the product of negative 2 and negative 2, which gives us positive 4. In this example, we're going to consider the expression x squared minus 6x plus 8 for the following questions. Our first question is the expression in standard form? We can see that it's in standard form because it's a sum of a squared term, a linear term, and a constant. And then we're asked if the expression is equivalent to x minus 4 times x minus 2. So let's start by calling negative 4m and negative 2n. Then we can put it into standard form to see if it matches what we started with. So we'll start with our x squared term, and then we'll add our x term with the coefficient of negative 4 plus negative 2. This gives us negative 6x. And then we're going to add the product of the two numbers. Negative 4 times negative 2 gives us positive 8. So now we can see that this matches what we were given, so this is equivalent. In our last example, we're going to decide which of the following quadratic expressions are in standard form. Let's start by looking at x plus 3 times x. This one is a product, so this one is in factored form, not in standard. If we look at the one below it, it's also in factored form because it's multiplying x plus 4 by itself. Now let's look at negative x squared minus 5x plus 7. This one's in standard form because we can see that it's a sum of three different terms. Our last expression is also in factored form because we can see that they're adding different terms. Now let's summarize what we've learned. A quadratic expression can be written in standard form or factored form. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c, and factored form is x plus m times x plus n. A term like 3x squared can be said to be in both standard and factored form because of its sum of terms as well as a product of terms.